Hi, everyone. I'm Jimmy Midyet, and I am the content director for the up and coming Florida Justice Technology Center. I'm very happy to be joined today by Rochelle Hahn, who is the director of masslegalservices.org, which is the advocate website serving Massachusetts. And Rochelle is going to take us through a demonstration of the Legal Resource Finder today. And I'm going to stop talking and let Rochelle do that. Rochelle, thank you again for being with us.
Sure, it's a pleasure, Jimmy. Thanks. So I'm going to demo the Massachusetts Legal Resource Finder, which is the tool that we have in Massachusetts to help people find civil legal aid. So this tool was developed, we had a soft launch in February 2014, so about a year ago now, and it was developed in response to a need to help people navigate our kind of complex civil legal aid system. We are fortunate in Massachusetts in that we do have a number of programs that can help people with civil legal problems. However, the programs all have different intake criteria depending on geography, depending on income, depending on the type of priority legal issue people have. And in addition, there's also a lot of civil legal problems, as with everywhere, where unfortunately there isn't going to be free legal service available, but we do have quite a bit of legal information and self-help information available on the website masslegalservices.org, our client website, masslegalhelp.org, and also in the courts websites and other state agency websites. So the goal of the Legal Resource Finder was to bring all of this information together into one tool with a URL, with a single URL that anyone in the state could access. It was developed under the auspices of a TIG grant, and the entity that got the TIG grant was the Massachusetts Justice Project. It's now been merged with Community Legal Aid in Massachusetts, and they had the TIG and did a lot of work on the TIG, and my program, the Massachusetts Websites Project, also had a contract to help develop the tool, and we have been maintaining it, doing the ongoing maintenance ever since. So that's just a little bit of background, and now I can show you basically how the Finder works. As I mentioned, we have its own URL, www.masslrf.org, but you can also get to the Legal Resource Finder from a number of other places. You can get to it from the Advocates website if you click Find Legal Aid. You could also get to it from the client website, which is Mass Legal Help. There's a button that says Find Legal Aid. And one of the reasons we did this is because we had a prior Find Legal Aid tool, and of course we had a lot of usage for that tool, so we wanted to we didn't want to lose anybody that was already going to that URL. So once people come to this page, the Find Legal Aid page, there's a little bit of introductory information here about what they have to do. And then there's several fields that people need to fill out. So you need to enter your town or zip code. Whoops, and you need to spell it more or less right. So I'm putting in Springfield, which is a town in Massachusetts. You need to check a box if you're age 60 or older, and that's because intake criteria are different for elders. Put the number of people in your household and the gross monthly income. And that is all the demographic information we asked for. This is not an intake. We specifically didn't ask for more detailed information. We don't ask for immigration status or assets or go into a lot of detail. And that was a deliberate choice because we felt that far more people were not going to get links to legal aid than we're going to get links. So we didn't want to ask people for a lot of information if they weren't going to get help at the other end. And also, each program has their own intake criteria, so we're leaving it to the programs to ask for the more detailed information. So once you've put in this basic demographic information, you choose from this list of topics what you want help with. And I'm going to run through a housing example. We'll say housing is probably one of our more complicated areas. But if you choose housing, you get a few choices about what kind of tenant you are or what kind of housing you have. And I'm going to choose that I'm someone in private housing. And again, you have some different questions here to go through. I'm going to say that this is an eviction. My landlord's trying to evict me. And then we ask what stage of the eviction people are in. And the reason we ask that in a fair amount of detail is the programs that do help people with evictions, it's very important to them what stage of the eviction they're at. So in this case, I'm going to choose that the person got a court summons but hasn't been to court. And at that point, we click the search button. And this is our results. You see at the top, you can forward or print any of these results. So in this case, there was the Community Legal Aid in Springfield, which is the legal aid program for Springfield, and it gives information about the intake phone number and or online intake. So someone can click on the link and fill out their online intake form right from here. Gives the information about their hours. It also lets people know that there's a court program every Thursday at the courthouse in the Western Mass Courthouse. It's reminding people that if they can pay for a lawyer, we have a list of lawyer referral services, basically our various bar associations. And then down here at the bottom, we also include information and self-help materials. So this self-help information gets returned even if there's nothing up here. And sometimes for some subject areas, there isn't going to be a program that they can get referred to, but they're always going to get information. Examples of the information that they may get is, for example, a link to our client website. We have a lot of information about evictions there. The court has some information about evictions. We have various forms, so we have self-help forms that people could get. So that's basically it. And then if someone has another problem, they would press search again, and it would start it all the, go back to the beginning. The links up here, we have a link. This lists all the programs in the Finder. There are over 50 offices at the moment. So we expanded our programs. So we not only include our Legal Services Corporation funded programs and IALTA programs, we also include a variety of court service centers or lawyer for the day type programs. There's also a number of nonprofits in Massachusetts that will actually help people with legal claims. There's also a number of law schools in Massachusetts that have clinics, so all of those folks can be in the Finder. We have drawn the line. We don't include any private individual attorneys in the Finder. Also, we have a list of all the lawyer referral services in the state. And again, we have limited our links to entities that are nonprofits themselves, such as the bar associations. We're not doing referrals to for-profit institutions, but we have started to include things like there's some incubator programs in Massachusetts, so that's part of that can be part of that tool as well. So that's the basics. Jimmy, questions?
Yeah, I have a few. Rochelle, thank you so much for leading us through that. This is great. One quick question: can you tell me on which platform this is built?
Sure. This is built in a platform called Drupal, and Drupal is an open source content management system, and it is available for other folks that want to use it. You can download what we have done. You're more than welcome to build on it. There's another group of states that have also, in New England states, that also had a TIG grant, and they did something similar, and they used some of our work as a basis. So
okay.
The great thing about Drupal is it can be shared.
Right on. Thank you for that. I was just interested in the platform because it looks really intuitive and useful. So can you tell us a little bit about how the project was developed? Was it by legal services programs only, by a single program, or were there partnerships?
Yeah, so it was through a TIG. It was through a TIG grant, and the Massachusetts Justice Project, which is now the Community Legal Aid, was the lead. They had the TIG grant, and we worked closely with them. The Massachusetts Websites Project worked closely with them, and we also did get a lot of input from the state as a whole. It was supported by the state as a whole from the legal services programs. So it was mainly a legal services program endeavor. Mm-hmm. We did share, one of the toughest parts was coming up with a list of topics that are in these pick lists. There are over 600 of those, and coming up with that list was probably one of the most time-consuming aspects of the project. For the topics in the list, we were trying to come up with the topics that we felt people called about the most,
Hmm.
and that either were most likely to get pulled in as an intake or were most likely to get rejected as an intake. For example, in housing, a lot of people call about problems with neighbors. That's not something that legal services programs tend to take people for representation. So if someone selects that from the pick list, they'll get some information and self-help materials, but they're not going to get a referral to a legal services program.
Sure, sure, sure. That makes
But we felt like, and it was challenging, and coming up with the list was hard because it's not like a search. It's not like people put in some random words and they'll generate it. It is a list. They have to find their problem in the list.
right. So it's sort of one of those situations where you have to sort of know what you're looking for to drill down to the
Right.
information you need. Okay, fair enough. And can you tell us what was the cost of development roughly, and how long it took the system to be developed from start to finish?
So it was the take was, I think, in the order of about $50,000, and we definitely did some more work beyond the TIG. If someone was to replicate the project, then I think it would go a lot faster because, as I said, a lot of the time was spent coming up with this list of topics
Hmm.
that was actually quite time consuming, and then the programming, of course, was a big component of that, and that again would be available for other people to take what we did and use it. So I think it would be a lot less expensive if you had a Drupal website and you wanted to do something like this.
Hmm.
Um, and we've continued to tweak it and tinker with it. It's designed so that you don't need to be a programmer to maintain it. For example, we can add new topics to the list, to these pick lists. So, um, for example, I'm just okay. That's our debt collection list. So if the new topic comes up, I can add another topic in, or I can delete a topic, and you don't need to be a programmer.
That's
The
great.
other um, the other thing I should mention about it is the tool is designed so that each individual program can maintain their own listing. Um, so I don't keep everyone's priorities up to date. Everybody has each program has an administrator, and
Hmm.
the administrator can go in and check and uncheck boxes. So if they're on intake for a topic, they can check the box. If they go off intake, they can uncheck the box.
Oh, that's great. So
So that's so
yes,
it's up to them to keep the listing up to date.
that's cool, and that again shows it's iterative, it's changing, and one of the beauties of it is that it's not necessarily up to you to go in and make all of those changes and wrangle all those folks. That's great.
Right. Well, I have still a fair amount of wrangling saying, "Can you please make sure your listing's up to date?" But you're right, I don't have to do it.
I,
And the other thing that we did build into this tool, there's actually a lot of specificity you could get to with it with these intake criteria. So, for example, we have a situation where we have certain grants with different income criteria.
mhm,
So when programs fill out their form, they choose what income criteria they want. So let's
mhm,
say they want most of the time it to be 200% of poverty. We encourage people to go a little bit higher just in case someone made a mistake with their income.
mhm,
But if you have a grant like some of the foreclosure money, there's no income limits for that. So you can set up a specific listing just for a specific topic and have no intake requirements. Or you could have a particular topic just be for a subset of your geography.
mhm.
So there's a lot of granularity that you can do with the tool.
Right on. And last question: what has been the impact of the system? What's been the impact in terms of services delivered, and also who's the system for? Is it for can volunteers use it, etc.?
So this is just some information about the usage. So we did the soft launch in February 2014. In 10 months, between April 1st, 2014 and January 31st, there were over 27,000 searches
Wow.
performed. So that's like 3,000 searches a month, something
Wow.
in that order.
Wow.
And that's the other thing that I think is really useful about our tool. It's like an ongoing legal needs assessment. I mean, granted, it's a legal needs assessment of people who have some capacity to use the internet, or else we find that quite a few social service providers use this tool for their clients.
Hmm.
So, given that understanding that this is not the whole scope of low-income people, you see, not surprisingly for us, that 63% of these searches were for people seeking help with family or housing, and another 7.6% were for debt collection.
Sure.
And that didn't surprise us at all, which is not to say that an issue like welfare benefits or emergency shelter might not be really important. It just might be that people with those issues aren't necessarily using the internet to look for help.
Right.
Um,
Right.
Also, not surprisingly, only 13% of the searches were for those age 60 or older. Again, it doesn't surprise me that there's somewhat less usage from elders. I was pleased to see that most of the searches really are for people below 200% of poverty, to 75%, and it's even for that other 25% that are above, I would think it's a fair assumption that most of those people could in no way afford legal services anyway, and so I'm very glad that they can get the legal information and self-help materials. And a number of the resources, like the court material, a lot of the court and agency referrals don't have income limits, so it is really useful for low and moderate income people.
Okay.
And there's over 50 legal services and partner programs in the directory, and then we have over 300 of those more information pages, which include various links to the self-help and referrals.
Well, that's really exciting, and I on behalf of just thank you personally, but on behalf of Joyce Raby and myself, we really do appreciate you taking the time for this. And ultimately, I think I can express the thanks of the technology subcommittee of Florida's new Access to Justice Commission that's forming up, that will really benefit from having a look at this resource. And I think that I should tell them that you have recorded this with us today from France, which I think goes to show your dedication and commitment to providing legal services to people who need it. And we just really do appreciate you, Rochelle, for spending time with us today.
Sure, happy to. I also just want to give a shout out to Gordon Shaw. He was the person at he's now at Community Legal Aid, and he was the lead on the TIG, and he did an awful lot of work to develop this as well.
Outstanding. Yeah, I've been on a few of those TIGs, so I know how important our partners are. Okay, Rochelle. Well, thank you. Go back. Have a baguette or some wine or something exciting, and again, really thank you so much for sharing with us.
Sure. Feel free to contact me again with any follow-up questions.
All right.
And I think I left the URL if anyone wants to poke around with it. It's www.masslrf.org.
Excellent. I'll include that. As a note with the presentation. And again, thank you and goodbye.
Okay. Bye bye.